You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan White.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we welcome to the studio photographer and Panasonic LUMIX Global Ambassador, Shiv Verma. Shiv will be talking to us about his impressions using the Panasonic LUMIX S1 full-frame mirrorless digital camera, as well as other cameras and lenses in the LUMIX system. We're also going to be discussing Shiv's work as a photographer and educator and get a sense of how he juggles many styles of photography to keep his business going strong. As you might have guessed, Shiv is here to help us promote our B&H Photography Podcast Panasonic LUMIX S1 sweepstakes. If you haven't already done so, we encourage you to follow the link in our show notes or visit the B&H Photo Facebook page to enter. Not only are we giving away a full-frame S1 with a 24 to 105 millimeter lens, a second lucky listener can win a LUMIX G95 mirrorless camera with a 12 to 60 millimeter lens. All that said, let's get on with the show. Welcome, Shiv.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have you here. The first thing we'd like to ask you about is a quote that appears on the first page of your website, and I'm quoting now. "The aim of every artist is to arrest motion, which is life, by artificial means and hold it fixed so that 100 years later, when a stranger looks at it, it moves again since it is life." It's a terrific quote that you would think comes from a photographer, but it's actually a quote by the writer William Faulkner. What does this mean to you?
Well, I think, in my opinion, any photograph has to have a story.
Yeah.
And the ability of a good photographer is to create that story in that image. And no matter when it's looked at, that story must pop back out. Mm-hmm. And if you can look at an image and realize that there is emotion, it evokes something, it speaks to you, or it tells you, I think you've achieved photography.
Okay.
All right, we're done. Let's go.
Thank you. Now, let me ask you, you're involved in a lot of different types of photography. You do a lot of commercial work, you do fine art work, you do a lot of technical work.
Yes.
Can you apply that same quote and the same thought process to some of the more technical things you do? Like, for instance, there is some very precise, exotic macro work that you work on that you wouldn't necessarily call it fine art.
No. And actually, a good example, products may not tell a story, but a product, if it evokes emotion, it induces purchase.
Yeah.
Well, there is some beautiful product photography.
Yes.
A good example, Apple advertising.
You look
Picture of a phone and you want to eat the darn thing.
Of course, and you look at jewelry.
Yeah.
Jewelry is not purchased because it looks good on somebody's finger. It's purchased because it looks good on paper, and then it's the demand.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of emotional responses, and product photography has a different emotional response. It's not necessarily a storytelling response, but it's a different emotional response.
And again, it's the viewer. If
Absolutely.
You have somebody who's into design and into, say, a more creative mindset, they'll be looking at a product and they'll admire the design of it. Some people just want to know if the phone takes calls. That's the end of it. It's a phone.
Yes.
I think it's interesting, too, in the idea of the technical work that you do, which obviously may fly in the face of this idea of emotion and storytelling. Mm-hmm. But to the viewer who knows what they're looking at, if it's photographed right, it is telling a story of how to use something, a story of what it's worth, what its value, its size. All those kind of things are part of the story.
And we all actually interpret stuff our own ways anyway. The three of us or four of us could look at the same photograph and our walkaways are different.
Yep.
So let me ask you, Shiv, do you think about this process when you're photographing? Are you someone that kind of takes your time, or are you somebody who can shoot very quickly? Because I know you do a range of work and you're out shooting birds. Obviously, you have to set up, but then there's a lot of I imagine continuous blasts going on to get the shot you want. So how does these ideas kind of come to play in your work?
Well, there's two things. When you're doing nature, wildlife, living subject matter that's going to fly away, move, whatever, you have to, number one, understand bird behavior, understand animal behavior, and anticipate what it is that they're going to do. And then, yes, you use a burst to capture that defined moment that you really want. But that's part of the process. The rest of it is, of the series of images that you took, how do you cull out the ones that don't have a responsiveness?
The editing process.
You remove those images, and then you keep the ones that depict the story. So that's the process when it is, animals, birds, etc. If you're looking at the concept of shooting landscapes, you can go to a location and you're waiting for the light, and it doesn't happen. Well, you don't now take pictures for the sake of taking pictures. You go away, and you come back again. It may not be the same day. It may not be for the next month. It may not be for a year. So.
And by the way, that's something you cannot do when you're doing wildlife photography, saying, well, there's nothing happening right now. I'm going to come back in a half hour, because you don't know when that bird's getting that fish.
That's true. So landscapes have a whole different approach, a lot of planning, a lot of location scouting, understanding direction of light, understanding where and when it's going to happen. And then atmospheric conditions. I mean, I hate blue skies. So
yeah, we all hate blue skies.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that you wait for, and you then translate into what your mind wants to depict, and then you photograph it.
Sometimes you go through a lot of time and effort and energy to get to this certain spot, and say not necessarily knowing if it's going to be good or not, or say you're going to get there saying, I know I'm going to be there for the best light of the day, and it turns out clouds came in or something else. There's all kinds of variables that happen. Do you just call it off, or do you say, okay, this is what I'm given. What can I get from this? Because I know I've shown up at locations when a hurricane is just starting to hit and little drops are coming down, and I can still pull off a cover because we just worked with what we had. Would you work through that? And if you do, at what point do you say it's just not good?
It depends. I mean, if there is something that is possible and is usable, then maybe yes. But if not, I don't have a problem walking away. I mean, just as an example, I've been to Iceland 16 times. Why do you go there 16 times?
Now, did you walk away any of those times? No.
Oh, yeah, many of them. Yeah. I mean, you walk away because the weather can be really bad, so you have to walk away. Or you walk away because it just didn't look okay. So, I mean, I do workshops over there. That's what the whole point is. But walking away is never an issue. I think if you learn to walk away, you might even make better pictures.
I think it's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Let me ask though, because you do such a wide range of work, what carries over from, let's say, a shot of a bird where you may have shot 100 photos just to get that one, or when you're doing a product photo or a portrait, for example. I mean, and we did talk about storytelling. Maybe that's what's at the heart of all of this, but are there things that you take from one genre to the next, or things that you totally throw away when you're working in one genre?
I think light always plays a very important role, and that, irrespective of what it is that you're photographing, you've got to understand that. You got to know how your subject is going to be lit. Even birds.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, there's a bird over there, let me go photograph it. Well, there's a bird over there. Where's the light? Which direction is it coming from? Are you going to see detail? Or are you not going to see detail? There's a lot of people who'll say, well, photograph a bird if the sun's behind your back. Okay, but am I going to get feather detail? Likelihood, no. So it's a good way to teach how to get a basic image, but it's not the good image that you're going to get when you do that. So to me, light direction, the color, the quality, and, no cliche intended, but even the quantity of light makes a big difference as to where and how you shoot. And my whole point is, move away. Decide on another location. Go somewhere else if it's not right. Don't struggle. Because what you're going to end up doing is you're going to struggle, you're going to shoot, and then you're going to discard.
You're disappointed.
When you're doing things like birds in particular, they don't hang around too long, unless it's a bird we're just waiting for the little fish to come by on the edge of the marsh. But often you don't have the option of moving to the other side of the bird or whatever the animal might be, because your movement alone is going to scare the thing away. And you may not have the physical ability to get there because of, rocks or whatever, water. And when you're out shooting wildlife, you could look for a good setting and wait for something to happen. But if something's happening in the other direction, you have to really kind of work with what's there and hope that, like, again, a little bit of backlighting just lights up the feathers and picks something up. Because sometimes that's all it takes to make the picture.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But you still have to work the subject.
Oh, sure.
And if you are able to move to the other side, do. Don't waste your time standing in a location just because the bird is there. You're not going to get what you want. And to me, moving is critical. In nature wildlife photography, there's a whole lot of P's. And you know what they all work for? Patience, 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 patience. That's it.
I was wondering where that was going.
Yeah, you have to have patience.
Yeah.
That kind of leads me into some of the thoughts on macro photography, which I know is a specialty of yours. Do the same rules generally apply when you're doing macro work? And how do you approach, let's say, a subject, an animal subject for that matter, in macro, you might otherwise differently than you might, in the wild, let's say, or with a long lens and a bird?
But I mean, the very term macro says it's going to be much more difficult.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're going to be that much closer to the subject, and it's going to be skittish. It's going to fly away. So the opportunities of getting exactly what you want when you want are far reduced. So
More patience, basically.
A lot more patience, a lot more patience, and I think a lot more technique.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing birds, for instance, you're not lighting them. It's God's doing the lighting for you. You're just capturing whatever is there at the time, for the most part. I mean, it's seldom that you'd pop off a flash or anything, unless it's a setup where you have.
Well, no, you can in certain situations pop flash just to get a little catch light in the eyes. There's nothing, sort of preventing you from doing that. You're not lighting the subject completely. You're just using light to add. In portraiture you call it fill lighting, and here it's kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
But all you want is getting a little bit of that glint in the eye to make the image pop. So the use of flash is very common.
Okay, but with macro, would it be more common? Because with macro, now all of a sudden it's literally within arm's reach, whatever it is you're photographing, and there are some wonderful little lights specifically for macro. Do you make use of a lot of those or any of those? Okay.
In fact, one of the key things with macro photography, unless you're doing stacking, which you would typically do with inanimate objects when you're shooting macro inanimate. But animate objects, you are going to basically look for as much depth of field as possible. So you're going to close down your aperture, and where goes the light? Now you've got to add light. And these little devices like, the Cube products, Lytra makes them, LUMCube makes them.
There's plenty, and even some that sit on top of the camera with little scissors, and you can, scissor arms, and you can actually move them around from camera position.
Actually, what I have for my macro rig now is I keep the camera mounted on a ball head on a platypod.
Right. Okay.
And then I have goosenecks on the platypod. So the whole thing is one rig. It moves as one solid object, right?
Gotcha.
You're not fiddling with different things. The lights are basically focused in on the closest focusing distance. That's what you typically want to use to get the maximum magnification. So everything is kind of preset. Now you physically move your body to get things in focus and capture them.
You are, in essence, creating a small studio when you're doing this.
Absolutely, yes.
This is product photography. It might try to crawl away, but it's the same thing. That's what it is.
And at times, I mean, I've created backgrounds. If the background is too close, and I know that it's going to be obtrusive because of the subject matter being so close to the background, and it's going to be all in focus. Well, move the background. I use things like fishing line to tie it up around the leaves and just pull them away so that you give more distance between subject and the background.
But you just said something that was important, the way you take string and you tie it away. And that's important. If you haven't done macro photography out in the woods, in the wild and stuff like that, don't break branches.
Oh,
Push them out of the way. Do little things. That's a great point.
It's part of ethics.
Yes.
You know, if you are a nature wildlife photographer, the first thing you better learn is ethics. Mm-hmm. Don't disturb. Don't clip things just because you want to get a better image. Same thing with, you go to places like Florida. The birds are within arm's reach. And there may be a nest, birds on the nest. You're not going to break the branches just because you want a picture of the eggs or the hatchlings. No. So ethics is number one.
Leave things the way you found them.
Yes. And if you want to pull, as I said, pull the background away, release it so that they come back to where they were originally.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You, looking at your work, you have a zillion specialties. You do a lot of different kind of things. You're not a specific, we're talking about a lot about bird photography. You're not a bird photographer per se. That's one of, 12 different kind of topics that you have on your site. What is the first thing that you started photographing? What caught your eye that said, I need to take pictures of that?
Well, at 11, when I first started taking pictures, it was flowers. So the camera that I was given by my grandfather was, fortunately, a Leica. And
good Gramps.
And his thing, I mean, he was an amazing man. I mean, he had 7 doctorates. And his doctorates were in zoology, botany, fishery. And so it was all nature wildlife type related. And he had the most incredible garden. So, of course, when you have all those flowers, that's what you get attracted to, and that's where you start photographing. And in flowers, there are insects. So now it became, okay, so shoot the flower as a flower. And now what about that insect? Now you want to look for macro lenses. Unfortunately, there were no macro lenses back then, so you use bellows.
Right.
And you just increase.
Leica is probably one of the worst cameras to get into close-up with.
I know.
It's doable, but...
not easy.
No.
Not easy, yeah. I mean, today, it's a godsend what we have. I mean, for macro photography, there's unbelievable.
What are your macro lenses in general? What do you use, especially when you're out in the field?
When I'm out in the field, typically now I've been using the 45 millimeter Leica on a Panasonic G9. Occasionally I will use the 30, but I find the 45 to be exceptionally sharp. And, when you're looking for high magnification, you're also looking for no distortion. And that lens is just exceptional.
Because it's slightly telephoto. Again, the 45 millimeter you're talking about has the equivalent focal length of a 90 millimeter lens because you're shooting in micro four thirds. For our listeners who might get confused about this. And so the 30 millimeter is the equivalent of a 60.
Right. It's a 2-time crop factor. Mm-hmm. So you multiply your focal length by 2 to get an equivalence of full frame. And now, there are a lot of extension tubes that you can buy. And you can increase the magnification, so that helps. They're third-party extension tubes, but they're fine for micro four thirds cameras.
I wanted to follow up a bit on Alan's point about just the range of things that you do, and maybe to ask, how is that an advantage and how can that be a disadvantage? Because obviously many of us are taught, okay, you have to focus on something. You have to specialize in something. If you want to sell your work, if you want to get your name out there, it has to be in certain area of photography. Now, how has that worked in your case? And do you even feel that that's true?
There was a point in time, I'd say about 10 years ago, where it was, what do you specialize in? Mm-hmm. And I say, I generalize. Today I find that being a generalist is much more advantageous because I can do most anything in photography. Yeah. I'm not limited to portraiture and studio lighting. I know how to light small subjects, big subjects, cars, you name it. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think being a generalist gives me much more of an opportunity to photograph and be requested to do photography in any genre.
Right.
And I'd much rather it be that way than be pegged to, oh, he's only a macro photographer, or all he does is, nature, wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
I think photographers should be open to all and every type of genre.
Mm-hmm. And how does that work in the sense of finding clients and looking for work? And have you found any disadvantage in that sense where people would say, you know what, I want to have my corporate portraits done by this guy because his work looks great, but someone say, well, he's really more of a wildlife guy.
The one thing I don't do is what I get requested for the most, and that's weddings.
I'm about to say, I didn't see much of that on your site. Well, if you could choose, what's your favorite? I mean, I don't want to put you on a spot here, and obviously there's joys in all kinds of photography, but if you, if you could pick and choose, would you be out in the field looking for birds or the landscapes or the product work you do?
Birds and landscapes primarily, yes. And I think what's really good is that when the weather is bad, there's enough to do indoors.
Inside.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
A question that I had for you related to the fact that you're I know it's a trivial statement to say, but a jack of all trades. And again, there are some people who are out there in the market who say if you're a jack of all trades, you're dead in the water because they can't identify what kind of photographer you are. But again, it is possible to be a generalist and survive. Do you have a portfolio that you show to people, or do you have category portfolios that you'd show?
I'd say categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It really depends upon who is asking for what. I mean, there's no point in my showing somebody my bird portfolio if they want me to photograph diamonds.
Well, by the way, that's not always true. Because back in the day, I was a boat photographer, and I had the head of a major multinational company hire me. He was a boat nut. But he said if the guy could photograph rowboats, I can't imagine how good he could be with like landing gear for jets.
You're right, and it does, because when you go to my website, you see everything.
Yeah. Right? You have subcategories of categories.
So if you see everything, it can lead to one, right? And that one is he knows how to photograph.
So now my question to you is: do you have people calling you specifically for any of just for those specializations? In other words, they need landscape, they need animals, they need products, or do you have any clients that call you for a range because you are able of doing anything? Do you have regular clients that call you for portraits and industrial stuff and this and that?
No.
So your clients are all very targeted in that sense. Okay.
I mean, the thing was, what did lead to one client requesting something that I never thought I'd ever be asked to photograph was windows. Doors and windows. A door and window manufacturer says, I need my doors and windows photographed. I said, why are you calling me? And they said, because you photograph chemical and biomedical equipment. So you know how to photograph glass.
All right.
And it struck me that glass is not easy to photograph.
No.
And I get called. And now the whole question is, all right, we're going to go to your place and shoot? You're going to bring the stuff to my place? They said, oh, no, this is too big to carry to your place. So you're going to have to come and shoot over here. Now it means, bring lights and whatever. So, yeah, that's the kind of response that I would give you, is that when they know you can shoot, they'll call you for the weirdest thing.
By the way, you were very fortunate in that, because the person who made that decision actually understood what the problem is, rather than saying, oh, it's just windows and glass. Anybody can do that.
Well, they tried with 4 photographers before that.
Okay. So in other words, so they actually learned.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That works. I get that now. Okay.
Well, we're gonna jump pretty soon and talk about the S1 and some of the other Lumix cameras. But can you kind of tell us how you got to the Lumix system? Because obviously, well, as you mentioned, you started shooting Leica, and I'm sure you've worked through all the systems, and you're an educator and you run workshops, so you must know the range of cameras that are out there. What was the first camera to introduce you to the system?
So, this is a strange one, but.
Can't scare us.
Back in 2013, I was working on my book on time lapse,
which we want to talk about soon too.
Yes.
And I had asked a bunch of manufacturers to provide me with things that they believed that they had, which would help me understand how their products would fit into the world of time-lapse. And I was using Canon, and Canon had nothing in the camera to do time-lapse. You had to use an intervalometer. And then going around, I was introduced to Tom Curley from Panasonic.
Sure.
And he said, we have time-lapse built in the camera. And I said, well, what kind of camera is this? And they said, it's a Micro Four Thirds, and it's called the Panasonic GH3. Let me send you one. So he sent me the camera with a couple of lenses, and I tried it, and I said, this is pretty good, because the time-lapse feature really worked exceptionally well. And so I said, okay, can I keep this camera a little bit longer? I'd like to take it in my next trip to Iceland and do some time-lapse of the aurora.
That's the same line I use all the time.
And he said, yeah. But I found that the GH3 did a good job. It could have been better. But when the GH4 came out, it was like night and day. And then I started using Panasonic cameras, and then got invited to be an ambassador. And that's how it really started.
So it was the right tool for your needs? That's exactly what it is?
It's the right tool for my needs. It serves everything that I'd like to do with nature and wildlife, because it has...
Actually have an advantage in this sense, right?
I have a huge advantage, both from the size of the camera, the speed and performance, and the reach of the lenses.
Yeah.
But for a lot of the other stuff, I was missing a full-frame format. Well, now that gap's been bridged. And, the S-Series, exceptional.
We're going to take a short break, and we come back when we're talking more about Panasonic with Shiv Verma. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, hashtag BHPhotoPodcast.
Okay, we are back. Shiv, question for you. A bunch of questions for you on this one. You are using now the Panasonic, the S1R, and we are in the midst of the Panasonic sweepstakes, and we're giving away an S1. Tell us about the camera. You basically were introduced to the system when it was Micro Four Thirds, and now you've had an opportunity to use the same company, Panasonic, and their full frame cameras.
In addition to the
Micro Four Thirds.
So I'm still using the Micro Four Thirds system for all my wildlife work.
For the reasons we said, longer lens
Yeah, I mean, you've got, the Leica 100-400, which gives you a reach of 200-800.
Correct, yeah.
There's a 200 millimeter prime, which is, again, an exceptional lens, f2.8, and that you can use with teleconverters. So you get that additional reach. The 50-200, another exceptional zoom lens, again, can be used with tele-extenders. So you've got 3 very, very good lenses for any kind of wildlife photography.
And it's manageable to carry.
And I'm not giving up my G9 for anything. the weight, the ability to, carry long lenses and use that product for a whole day and not have your back give away. I'm not stopping that.
No, it's a big issue. That's important to me. I get that. I get that.
Now, as far as, macro work is concerned, again, the S-Series don't have a true macro lens yet. They will be at some point in the near future, particularly with the Alliance and Sigma making lenses for them. But and I hate to use the term kit lens because it's not really a kit lens, it's an exceptional lens. The 24-105,
which is the one we're going to be giving away in our sweepstakes.
Yeah, which is in your sweepstakes with the S1 body, is a half macro, as we call it. I mean, it's half life size. May not have the same qualities as a macro lens because a macro lens typically is not a zoom lens.
Correct.
So, but it gives you the ability to get in really close, and that's an advantage.
Is it continuous to half-life size, or do you have to flip a switch and be at a certain focal length to get there?
No, there's no switching.
So it's continuous.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Okay.
So you don't have to flip any switches, and that is a beautiful lens. It's an f4, but it's f4 throughout, and that makes for most of your what I would call general photography. It's an ideal lens. It covers that portrait range at 90 to 105, so you have a good portrait lens. Clearly, the other lenses, the 50 millimeter, is an exceptional lens. I think more and more I would call that a 50 millimeter reference because that's what that lens really is. The price point also is a reference point, but it's truly exceptional. And if the person who's the...
Sorry, could you explain that a bit? What do you mean by that when you say a reference lens?
I mean, it's something that you could say measure other lenses by.
I understand. Okay,
Gotcha.
I got you.
So you have that, and then as far as the Panasonic lineup is concerned, the 70 to 200 is the third lens which will work with the S1. So based upon who the winner is and what their photographic expertise may be, these are the three lenses that are available today.
Right.
You also have a 1.4 and a ×2 teleextender that can be used with the 70 to 200. The issue that you will run into is because it's an f4, the ×2 makes it an f8 lens.
Right.
And people may find
it works fine under bright sunny days, and as soon as it gets a little bit darker, past about 5, 6, 8, autofocus and metering gets a little bit funky.
You will lose some of the quote quality of the lens because of that.
Yeah.
But with the 1.4, not a problem.
And don't forget the image stabilization that are in these cameras too, which will make a big difference when you're getting
the image stabilization is the other thing. The G9 is a 6.5 stop image stabilization.
Right.
At 6.5, you can handhold at shutter speeds that were not possible, and even with long lenses.
Yeah.
With the S series, your 5.5 stops is what you're getting today. Maybe they'll be able to improve it with some firmware later, but today it's 5.5 stops.
Which isn't terrible either. It's not terrible.
It's great.
I go back to the time when we had no image stabilization.
Yeah.
Right?
It was called the tripod. Yes, I remember.
So now you can handhold and do things like you weren't able to before. I mean, think about it, even for macro work. That stabilization allows you to handhold and move your body to focus rather than have to set up a tripod, because by the time you set up a tripod, that subject's gone.
Sure. Yeah, or you knocked it off the flower altogether, setting up the tripod.
Right. Yeah.
No, and by the way, that is a really good point, because if any of our listeners have never really tried macro, getting up real close that image jumps all over the place. It's like holding a pair of binoculars and trying to watch something out in the distance. It's all over the frame.
Yeah. So tell us about the S1 and in your case the S1R, and obviously all the cameras from the system very well. What do you find that in terms of the applications that you prefer? What do you use that for?
So there's a few things as far as resolution is concerned. Both the S1 and the S1R are extremely good as far as high resolution images. 24 megapixels, a 47 megapixel base resolution of the two cameras, but then you have the high-res mode. where they're using a concept of pixel shifting. So in high-res mode, the first thing that happens is that your image stabilization goes off because they're going to use the stabilization mechanism to shift the sensor to create the higher resolution image.
Okay.
So don't expect to handhold, which would be crazy if you even tried to, and do a high-res image.
Even with image stabilization or not?
There is no image stabilization. So you can get 80 megapixel images from the S1. You can get 187 megapixels with the S1R. And what I've noticed, I mean, a lot of people said, well, it's just pixel shifting, higher resolution, things go wrong. Things go wrong if you've got some subject matter that's moving.
I also find just from using it with a Panasonic camera, you got to use a good heavy-duty tripod. That's also part of it.
Use a good heavy-duty tripod.
Or something.
But if you use what's known as mode 2, then the camera will compensate for subject that moves.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the G9 did not have mode 2. So now in mode 2, you can correct for some of that. It's not 100%, but it's still far better than ever before. The key to it is that when you're using high-res mode, what you will notice is not only is the resolution of the image better, the sharpness improves, but gradation of color.
The dynamic, okay.
Dynamic range, maybe a slight improvement. I haven't really noticed.
Color is noticeable.
But the color gradation is incredible. If you have, varying color in the sky, the smoothness of that color range is just unbelievable. So that part is exceptional. The other features in the camera, I mean, the mode 2, as I said before, which was, a godsend because, some leaves moving, now it compensates for it. The other features that both the S1 and the S1R have is inbuilt time-lapse, which is, for me,
Let's talk about that
great.
a little bit. Yeah.
You've got pretty high-speed burst for a full-frame camera. I mean, a camera that's going to give you 9 frames a second, which, is not easy with, such a large sensor camera. 6 frames in continuous autofocus, and that's also great. Then you've got your video modes where you can do, bursts. So the pre-burst concept where when you press the shutter, or let's say when your shutter is half depressed and you're focused on a subject, the camera is buffering 1 second worth of images. So when you press the shutter, it retains the 1 second before you press the shutter and a second after you press the shutter.
Yeah. I use that on another.
So
camera.
I've used this statement before: is that Henri Cartier-Bresson looked for the decisive moment. Now you don't have to look for it; it's already there.
It was happening before you started shooting.
So clearly, that type of thing.
The whole idea is kind of a mind blower when
I know.
you're getting the photo before you actually push the shutter.
When you tell people, when you're out in the field, right, and they say, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just did a pre-burst." What is that? I said, "The camera took some pictures before I took the pictures." He said, "What?" That's the kind of reaction.
Yes, we understand each other.
Right. So now, people are getting more familiar with it, and that's a huge advantage. I mean, clearly a huge advantage for me.
See, the truth is most people's reflexes aren't quick enough. So what this does, it could often catch the picture that you thought you were taking to begin with.
So the other statement that we always made is if you saw it, you never took it.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? Well, the fact is, if you saw it, you already took it.
As long as your fingers on that button.
What kind of photographers, what applications are ideal for the S1 and the S1R? I realize they're different with the resolution and the size, but let's talk about the S1 for a second. Who would you recommend this camera for?
Oh, I'd recommend it for people who like doing what I call hybrid photography.
Generalists,
Generalists,
right?
I mean, it's, a landscape photographer's dream,
right,
a portrait photographer's dream, and a nature photographer's dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're not a photographer, if you're a videographer, You got everything in there.
Right.
And with the free upgrades that they did with the Vlog, you have,
And can you? This is something I'm not so clear on either. But can you kind of compare the S1 to the GH5 and that GH series, which obviously everyone has come to known as the video SLR? Is it comparable? Can you get the same out of the S1 that you can out of the GH5?
So you're getting 4K video, right? The sensor size really has no difference as far as 4K video is concerned because the actual video is smaller than the sensor. But what does make a difference is how much information is being collected and then being pushed down into that 1920, 1080 if you're using HD or 4K. So basically, if you're doing full sensor readout, the quality of the image is going to be better. The GH5 and the GH5S, they have their own place in the video world. I mean, they're both exceptional cameras, small, easy to use. You don't really need a gimbal with those cameras because of the image stabilization being so good. However, with the GH5S, there is no stabilization. It was meant to be a video-centric camera for people who don't want stabilization. Automotive photography, cameras mounted on cars. You don't want image stabilization because it gets totally countered and the image quality deteriorates.
And you destroy the camera mechanisms, yes.
Sure. So in those situations, the GH5S is a very specific camera for certain types of video and also as a low-light performer. It has dual native ISO. So that makes a huge difference. The GH5, to me, is, I think, any photographer who wants to do video should lean towards getting that. Because you can't get better. I mean, the S1 is great. But are you going to spend that much money just if all you want to do is video? Because the S1 really is a photographer's camera. S1R is a photographer's camera. It has all the video features, but if you're purely a video photographer or videographer, get the GH5.
It's a better tool for the job.
Best tool for
without
the job.
losing any of the image quality. Do you do much in the way of video for yourself?
Not a lot. I do it more for educational purposes.
Okay.
I teach video concepts. I teach vlogging. I teach color management and things. But do I do a lot of video? No. Have I done some? Yes. But is that primarily what I do now?
So you prefer telling the story in one frame?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Can we talk a bit about the G95 then, which is the second camera in the giveaway?
It has a 20 megapixel sensor. It's the same size sensor as the G9. It has exceptionally good video capability, and it comes with Vlog. It has all the features that you want from a camera that can do video. It's got a mic jack. It's got HDMI out. It's got 422 external, 420 internal, 8-bit. If you want a camera that'll do photography, videography, and you don't want to spend the money on getting a GH5, it's a generalist tool that is great. The G9, in my opinion, is truly a photographer's dream camera.
Okay.
The G95 is a hybrid photographer's best friend.
Well said. And you said that it was the only or the first camera to bring in the stacking?
The G95 has what's known as, it'll do a composite in camera. Okay. So what it's basically doing is it's taking a sequence of images and compiling them into a single frame, not allowing the same area that has the most intensity of light to be duplicated and thereby get blown out.
Okay.
So it's great for doing things like star trails. It's great for doing night images of city scenes, where you want the car trails. And you don't want the building lights to blow out just because you've got the exposure on for so long.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
so
interesting.
it's basically live composite.
And is that a mode that
It's a mode.
and it takes a certain amount of images?
You can set the interval.
Okay.
You can set the number of exposures.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But is that offered in the other series cameras?
No, it's the only one that.
to the G.
So far,
okay.
it's the only one that has it.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know if any of the point and shoot cameras have the feature. I'm not that familiar with the entire point and shoot line, but as far as a interchangeable lens camera, this is the first one that has that.
And we're going to be giving, with the G95, we're giving away the 12 to 60 millimeter. What lenses do you recommend for this camera? And
Well, the 12 to 60 is a very good lens. Okay, again, when you provide cameras with good lenses, I think there should be a new term. They shouldn't be called kit lenses because kit lenses have a kind of a bad connotation.
Right. Yeah.
But the 12 to 60 is basically your 24 to 120 equivalent. Right. So it has reasonably good reach. It is pretty nice on the wide end. A typical 24 millimeter wide is a good lens to have. You can upgrade to the Leica lenses, like the 12 to 60 Leica if you want, but I think you're nothing more than duplicating the focal range. But if you want to go wider, then I would suggest the 8 to 18 Leica, which will give you 16 to 36 millimeters. Beautiful for landscape photographers.
That's pretty much everything you need for wide-angle photography. It's all in one piece of glass.
And if you are looking for using this camera as a nature camera for doing wildlife, then you have two options based upon what it is that you like to photograph. I'd go for the 100-400 Leica right away. But if you are not going to be doing that much as far as birds are concerned, more larger animals, then the 50 to 200 is a perfect lens. And if you need to extend its reach, then buy the tele-extender.
And you had mentioned a bit earlier the, I guess it's called the L-mount Consortium. Is that what it's called now? I'm not exactly sure, but can you explain that a little bit? And obviously, we're talking about opening up the door to a range of great lenses from several manufacturers, all usable on the Panasonic series.
So Micro Four Thirds was a sensor size. The Micro Four Thirds mount was the opening for where the lens goes. And you get Micro Four Thirds lenses by Olympus, by Panasonic, by Blackmagic. So they all have a standard, so lenses can be made to that standard. Now, the L-mount Alliance basically takes the L-mount that Leica developed, and because of the alliance, now Panasonic has an L-mount opening. Sigma has an L-mount opening with their new camera. And so does Leica. The SL and the T-mount cameras are all L-mount. So any lens that is an L-mount lens can be interchanged with any body. Now, those folks who love the Leica lens look and the Leica lens quality but don't want to buy a Leica camera, can use those lenses on the Panasonic camera and vice versa. What Sigma is doing is basically opening up an opportunity for S1 and S1R photographers where Panasonic hasn't yet come out with the entire plethora of lenses that they do for the Micro Four Thirds, they're going to bridge with some of their really nice art lenses.
The art series, yeah.
The art series is now recognized as truly quality. So now we have that opportunity to use those lenses. And I think the first one, which is not an art lens, I believe, it's the 45 millimeter, has already been released.
Okay.
So the 45 millimeter is more like their contemporary series. It's, I think, under $600. Whereas the art lenses are usually $1,200 to $300 or whatever. So I think by the end of August, we should start seeing a number of these coming into the stores. So it opens up a very large number of lenses, and Panasonic doesn't go into that same situation where some of the other manufacturers, when they came out with their full frame cameras, had only 3 lenses and there was nothing more for practically 2 years.
And do you know, was this part of, did Panasonic reach out to the companies and say, hey, we're going to be going forward with this, we need to get some lenses together, let's work something out? Or was this something that...
I'm not sure as to what the internals were within the companies, but you know that Panasonic and Leica have been working closely for a number of years, right? And there's a lot of interchange of technology between both those companies. And I think bringing Sigma into the fray of lens-camera relationship is a good thing.
I totally think so. Yeah. And obviously the art series has kind of changed the game for Sigma. And I shoot an art series now, on my Nikon. So I mean, it's definitely makes a lot of sense.
Well, don't get me wrong. It's not just the art series. Their contemporary lenses are also very good.
The sports series, contemporary. Yeah, exactly.
In fact, I have had the opportunity to try the 100-400 contemporary on the S1. With the MC21 adapter.
Oh, right.
Now, that's another great thing. Being mirrorless, you can adapt DSLR lenses to mirrorless cameras because of the flange distance. It gives you the ability to put an adapter. So the MC21 will let you mount any Canon lens to the S1 series. You may not get that high-speed focusing, you may not get full image stabilization. EXIF information will go through, yes. I mean, aperture control, etc. But you may not get all the performance that you otherwise would. So it basically opens up every single Canon lens can be mounted on an S1. So now you've got a huge range of lens availability.
Is there an adapter being made yet that will let you use the S lenses on the smaller G series cameras or Micro Four Thirds? Can you go back and forth between those two?
No, I haven't seen any mention of that by anybody.
You'd think that would almost be a natural. They want to, say you have both cameras, you want to use the larger lenses.
Yes and no. Remember the reason why you can use DSLR lenses is because the distance between where the lens sits,
the flange mount,
has room.
Right.
The Micro Four Thirds, because there is not much room, will limit your ability to take a mirrorless lens and mount it to a mirrorless camera because you would be moving the lens away.
Right.
And that's not always a good thing.
Okay. Gotcha.
Right. Was there anything that about the time-lapse functions of the S1 or any of the Lumix cameras that we didn't touch?
So far, I think, from the very get-go with the GH3, I mean, time-lapse was an inherently built-in function. The intervalometer was built in. I have, and maybe this podcast is a good way to tell Panasonic that we need a little bit more. And so
tell us about it. Go ahead.
So the need of a little bit more would be for the camera to have an inherent ability to do bulb ramping. So with the variation of exposure, the camera compensates for it and adjusts appropriately. So you know how to read the light. You have a meter. Now use that information and adjust time-lapse. Not hard to do. Yeah. It can be done through a firmware update.
What is it about time-lapse that you love so much, or that you love, let's just put it that way, as opposed to video or photography, still photography?
For me, I think it's a tremendous educational tool. And that's what I try and tell people. I mean, teachers, right? They explain to children or to students, this is how a seed becomes a tree, becomes a plant, They don't get it. They're not going to sit there and watch a seed sprout roots and grow. But if you can show that to them through a time lapse, it's instant gratification. They'd see it happen. So where else and how else can you demonstrate that
All righty. Websites, Instagram, people want to see more of your work. Where could they go?
They can go through my website to all the other locations, but I have a Facebook page, again, linked to my website, Instagram linked to my website.
And the website is?
The website is my first name, last name, shivverma.com.
Okay, 2 V's.
And then there's a lot of my work also on the Panasonic website.
Yeah, there's a lot of great work there.
Again, I encourage people to not only see what I do there, but the rest of the ambassadors. We have an absolutely wonderful team. And I think there isn't a single ambassador that I know who isn't also in some shape or form an educator. We all love to teach. So
Well, photography is about communicating.
Yep.
It's just another form.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, Shiv, thank you so much for joining us today. It was terrific talking with you. And your work is wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And it's been a nice day to be out of the rain.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, come back sometime.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Would you like to be instantly notified every time a new show comes online? It's easy. All you have to do is subscribe to the B&H Photography Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, and Spotify. You can always find this on the B&H Explorer website, as well as the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. A Box of Donuts also says that if everybody you care about subscribe to the B&H Photography Podcast, the world will be a much happier, safer place. And you can quote me on that. And if you need a further incentive, don't forget, we are in the midst of the B&H Photography Podcast Panasonic LUMIX S1 sweepstakes. And if you want to know how to get that camera, all you have to do is follow the link in the show notes and you'll get all the information on how to win the new S1 or G95. For now, and as always, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, thank you so much for joining us today.